And salutations and welcome back to our second table of the day, second round table of the day. We're now going to be going to the issue of trade policy. How do we move food around? How do we ensure that we get food to where it's needed, as well as the inputs for food? Because, I mean, to get the food, first of all, we might have inputs in fertilizers or pesticide control or whatever it is, tools, machinery for processing. So many things are part of the food or the agribusiness agenda. And I might remind all of us that today's conversation, we're talking about agribusiness as a whole, not just one particular sector. So it's from things from the forest, things from the farm, things from the sea, anything that we can use that is a nature-based product is what we're talking about. So Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Claire. It's my pleasure, as always, to join ICS for this conversation. And I need to preface that I'm in Jamaica, and as I was listening to the earlier discussion, which I also very much enjoyed, I was having some internet connectivity issues. So if that happens, either just bear with me a little bit, or I'm going to switch over to my phone. But I wanted to try to join from the computer because I thought it would be helpful to share a little presentation. And this is not a lecture. I know we said it is a discussion, but I think sometimes visuals can be very helpful. So let me just, I thought a good place to begin the discussion about the future of farm in the future in US and the Caribbean from the perspective of accessing the US market is to start with talking about the future, the present, right? Which is the existing framework, Caribbean Basin Initiative, CBI, which is the framework that provides access for a wide range of goods from the Caribbean into the US market. And I think the generosity of that program is perhaps in a number of ways underscores the invitation that Michelle shared, which is that from the trade policy perspective, this is the most generous program that the US offers to any developing country region, but it is unfortunately very sadly underutilized. So I want to start this discussion with just reminding us about what that framework is, but then also, of course, exploring what are some things that can change, what are some areas in which we need to improve. So very briefly, CBI, Caribbean Basin Initiative, it's created by an act of two pieces of legislation from Congress and actually several pieces of legislation which you see here. This is not going to be a trade wonky kind of talk. I just want to provide some context here. Almost any product that you can think of, certainly agricultural products that can be classified or confirmed as being of Caribbean origin already has duty-free access or some kind of preferential access into the US market. And one of the things that makes this CBI, certainly the largest component of the program different from other programs, is that it does not expire at all. So there's duty-free entry, as I said, for a wide number of products into the US market. There are some other benefits as well. You get exempted from a fee that that most products attract. And the purpose of the program when it was conceptualized was to also provide a basis for attracting foreign direct investment into the region in order to take advantage of that preferential access into the US market. any product that meets US laws can enter the market, and it must nevertheless meet rules of origin. So for example, if it's we're talking about agricultural produce, it must have been grown, or if you're adding value, you have specific rules that need to be met in order to qualify as a product of Caribbean origin that will benefit from this program upon entry into the US market. I want to highlight this particular slide here. So one of the things that makes, this is where the rubber hits the road. When it comes on to trade in goods, this kind of, well, let me say what this is for those who may not be familiar with it. This is a page from the US, the Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States. And this is what tells you, tells customs, tells whoever is interested, what kind of duty rate your product is going to attract when it enters the US market. All right. Now, this first column here, you can see is what products that are coming from most countries in the world will have to pay. And this column, the second column, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving down, is where you have countries, products that are eligible for duty-free entry. This column here is what most countries, products coming in from most countries are going to have to pay. This column is where it says that you're going to be able to bring your product in duty-free. And you'd take my word for it, Caribbean products are products of Caribbean origin. For all of these are allowed in duty-free. Compare this to cassava. Most other countries are going to have to pay a 7.9% duty rate if the cassava is frozen. If it's unfrozen in any other capacity, it's going to be 11.3%. Sweet potatoes, 6%. Or 4%, yams, 6.4%, you get the picture. In other words, just being able to bring Caribbean products into the US market as examples, where you have that kind of duty differential is what makes CBI such an attractive program, and where the rubber hits the road in terms of the benefits of that particular program. As I said, it is sadly underutilized, but this is one of the places to start by really getting the word out, getting the information out about this program. I was invited some years ago to do a talk on CBI. Went to several countries in the region. It's where US Embassy hosted talks. And someone in the audience said, I don't remember which country, oh, that thing is still alive, meaning CBI. We thought it died with Ronald Reagan. No, the program did not die with Ronald Reagan. It is still very much here. But that exchange gives you an example of just how much more work needs to be done to keep getting the word out that these benefits do exist. So lack of awareness, sometimes the challenges, there is a challenge to meet the rules of origin, talking about some of the reasons that the program is underutilized. And those include meeting some of the sanitary and phytosanitary requirements as well. And then I think there's been a lot of discussion earlier this morning around what would maybe some of the supply side constraints are. In other words, what are the challenges that the region itself faces? And then there can be some ways in which, as generous as this program is, that US policy or implementation of US policy, I think, can be changed. So just quickly, some possible solutions here. We talked about, sorry, I should have gotten rid of Jamaica, but across the region, right? Raising awareness of the benefits of CBI, both to our stakeholders in the Caribbean, as well as to foreign stakeholders, to be able to continue to attract that, or to attract the foreign direct investment that's needed. Active engagement between US and regional partners. And of course, conversations like these are very helpful in that. There is a formal framework that has been set up through the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement that has been signed between CARICOM and the United States. And as part of that process, Trade and Investment Council was formed. And that council is supposed to meet twice a year, every 6 months. I'm not sure really when the last meeting was. Perhaps that's something that Michelle can give a little bit more information about. What I can say is that from my, as I move around the region and talk with active stakeholders, people who should be engaged in this process, there's a lack of awareness that this process exists. And so I think my fear, and I believe this is what tends to happen, our government representatives show up to these meetings without the input, without the information that they need to draw from our businesses, our farmers, etc. And it becomes very much a one-sided conversation. So building again and referring back to Michelle's point about the need for that consistent ongoing engagement, whether it's through the Department of Commerce, through the TIC, by the private sector, that these are not conversations that should be left up to governments alone. And then there's a need to address things like your supply side constraints. I would say that when I have tried to get a sense of how the US, things like the Foreign Agricultural Services, USDA, organize, or even say, well, I think FDA does a more direct job of that, but how the agricultural services channel technical assistance and other kinds of solutions to the Caribbean, it seems to be done from it's a little bit of it's done from a distance. The offices are based in Miami, possibly Puerto Rico. I'm not aware, and I'm very willing to be told that I'm wrong about this, but I have not been made aware of, for example, programs or offices or agencies that exist inside of the Caribbean that can then therefore be more visible, that can be more easily accessed. I've tried to arrange meetings on behalf of clients, for instance, and or even just on behalf of some partners with whom I've been working, and those have proved very, very challenging to arrange, because when you place an agency that's supposed to be dealing with the Caribbean and Puerto Rico, or essentially in U.S. territory, I don't know that it necessarily sends a strong message of the importance of the region and exactly how they're supposed to engage. So that's definitely one area that I think can change in helping to build some of that engagement and that partnership to address the supply side constraints. I think the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is much more present in the region, and I commend them for that. And then finally, I think another area in which US policy could take some revisiting is being more willing to facilitate the extension of trade in agricultural services, USDA, organize, or even say, well, I think FDA does a more direct job of that, but how the agricultural services channel technical assistance and other kinds of solutions to the Caribbean, it seems to be done from it's a little bit of it's done from a distance. The offices are based in Miami, possibly Puerto Rico. I'm not aware, and I'm very willing to be told that I'm wrong about this, but I have not been made aware of, for example, programs or offices or agencies that exist inside of the Caribbean that can then therefore be more visible, that can be more easily accessed. I've tried to arrange meetings on behalf of clients, for instance, and or even just on behalf of some partners with whom I've been working. And those have proved very, very challenging to arrange, because when you place an agency that's supposed to be dealing with the Caribbean and Puerto Rico, or, essentially in US territory, I don't know that it necessarily sends a strong message of the importance of the region and exactly how they're supposed to engage. So that's definitely one area that I think can change in helping to build some of that engagement and that partnership to address the supply side constraints. I think the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is much more present in the region, and I commend them for that. And then finally, I think another area in which US policy could take some revisiting is be more willing to facilitate the extension of trade. And some time ago, I attempted to organize a trade mission to see what would be possible to do about organizing a trade mission of US providers into the Caribbean, so that they would be able to access some of the programs and services that are tend to be available for US exporters. And because for the most part, the groups that would be companies and individuals that would have been interested in participating are things like your wholesalers, your distributors, the people that we want the folks in the Caribbean need to engage with in order to better understand how to access the US market, perhaps how to prepare products for the US market. But those are service providers. And unfortunately, as of recently anyway, I don't know if that has changed, those programs that provide funding for US exporters were not available to service providers. They had to be exporting US goods, for instance. And so I think changing the perhaps paradigm a little bit and changing the prism through which some of these programs are looked at, and to understand the important role that service exporters can play in facilitating trade in the region would be very helpful. Let me stop there.